Hi everybody, it's Nancy from NatureWorks. I'm here in my home garden and I thought I would show you a little bit about how we use the herb Comfrey to make free compost and enrich the soil. This is Comfrey, and Comfrey is a really powerfully useful herb for the garden. It pulls nutrients from deep in the soil. It brings minerals up from deep in the soil. The bees love it, the hummingbirds love it. It's kind of got a scratchy texture. In herbal medicine, it's called knit bone because a poultice made of it, put on injuries, really knits them back together quickly. But we use it to make compost and add minerals to the garden. So what we do is literally, when it gets to this height, we start cutting it back. This seems kind of crazy, right? But I was taught this by a man who worked for me who was a permaculturist. And when you get to NatureWorks and you visit, you'll see we have comfrey growing everywhere. These are just small quart-sized pots put in a few years ago. So you just harvest your comfrey. You don't have to harvest it all, but normally we just take a garden sickle and cut it to the ground. It grows right back, right? And you walk over to your raised beds. This is my brand new raised bed. And then you just chop it up and use it on the soil as a mulch. It takes about a week or less for it to dry up. And what will happen is all those minerals that it pulled up from below the soil level will be added to the garden soil in this raised bed. Sometimes if I want to start a new area of a garden, like this is a milkweed patch, and I might want to start a garden here, I'll just lay the comfrey down really thickly on the ground. And then in a couple of weeks, it'll all be decomposed and I'll dig it into the soil. Normally, I wouldn't do this when it's in flower. Normally, I would cut it before it flowers and just keep cutting it maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So I consider it a harvestable herb. But this year I let it flower because when Suzanne Hausselt did her hummingbird talk, she said the #1 flower for hummingbirds is comfrey, and I had no idea. So I let the first batch flower. But after this, I'm just going to keep slicing it down, cutting it back, adding it to the garden beds. Any empty space, any place you're trying to develop, anything that you want to make richer, you can lay it underneath leaves, you can lay it underneath straw. But what it does is it have roots that go deep down in the earth, and they bring those minerals up. Now these are some young comfrey plants I just put in to add to the end of this garden. So this is what they look like in a quart-sized pot. They're so unexciting. I mean, I took probably 6 or 8 leaves off just because they were kind of stressed out in their pot. But it's already getting new leaves, and these were just planted 2 days ago. So if you look at how big, like say this comfrey plant is right here, which is enormous, that started out as a quart-sized plant. So I just keep adding them to the garden. They're great. They take up a lot of space. They smother out the weeds. And what other plant can you plant where you can just slice it down, chop it up, use it as mulch, feed the soil? Some people will put it next to their compost pile and layer it into the compost to add minerals to the compost. So comfrey, which is Symphytum officinalis, is a really cool herb. You'll see that we're one of the few garden centers that stocks tons of it because we use it just for this purpose. So next time you're at NatureWorks, stop by the herb section, grab yourself some comfrey plants and start growing your own mineral compost. This is Nancy from NatureWorks saying, see you at the garden center.